Good morning to all of you. Good morning to those of you who are possibly not on holidays yet. Thank you for joining. We're really happy to have you here with us. My name is Jibila Akrobaite. It is absolutely lovely to see you all, and I want to welcome you to a special episode of Cluster Talks, EU funding for critical technologies. We'll have a special session on the STEP initiative. We will obviously, first and foremost, soon figure out what is meant by critical technologies, as well as discuss challenges in accessing EU funding, and hear about advancements in digital, deep innovation tech, clean and resource-efficient tech, and biotech. How can we boost investments in critical technologies in Europe? There is an initiative that was launched very recently, March, 1st of March this year, which is called the Strategic Technologies for Europe Platform. STEP is the abbreviation, and it does aim to strengthen the EU's industrial competitiveness and reduce external dependencies by funding the development and manufacturing of critical technologies in the EU. And that is, again, to say, namely, digital and deep innovation tech, clean and resource-efficient tech, and biotech. STEP, what will it do? It will mobilize funding across 11 existing programs, help mobilize funding financed by the EU, and it is estimated that it will boost investments in these three sectors by up to 50 billion euros through existing EU instruments combined with other public and private funds. Will this be recorded? People are asking. Yes, it will be recorded, and you can find the recordings of cluster talks on the European Clusters Collaboration Platform's website, and we'll tell you more about it as we go. So this is the context in which we are in, and we will discuss EU funding for critical technologies today. So welcome again, everybody, and thank you for being with us. What we will do is we will hear the news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. We will have an introductory keynote, introduction to STEP, policy background, funding, opportunities, and demo of the platform, and that will be delivered by the European Commission. And we'll have a panel debate where we will discuss with clusters what they think about it, what their needs are, what their challenges are, and what their success stories are as well. We'll end, as always, by funding opportunities, again, presented by the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. So this is roughly the agenda. There are some tech tips that I will go through. We will use Slido to launch polls. You can scan the QR code to answer whenever it appears. It's really easy. It will take you straight to the question we are asking at that point. There is a Q&A function on Zoom to ask questions. You can use that. You can also use the chat function to comment or share links. You are doing that already, saying hello to all of us. Thank you for doing that. That's nice. It's warm, and it kind of warms everyone up. And then we know that there is a community in which some people know some other people and some of them don't. And this is, some nice icebreaker that you're doing. So thank you for that. Do raise your hand if you want to speak, and we will give you the floor. There's that opportunity too. And yes, the session is being recorded, and that the recording, it will be published on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. So this is it for the tech tips, and that's roughly the introduction to the session that we're about to have. And I'm glad that you're with us. And we will move to the news from the European Cluster and Collaboration Platform, and I will hand over to Nina Hauptmann.
Thanks, Jibila, and good morning to everyone. We want to inform you about some upcoming events that might be very interesting for you and for your members. First of all, we would like to invite you to the CETO Lab, which is a workshop-style event where you have the opportunity to build your next project and to meet partners, and discuss your ideas to initiate new collaborations and to initiate your project roadmap, for example, to apply together for a European call or to look for other funding opportunities. This will take place in Strasbourg in France on the 25th and 26th of September. And we are also going to hold an info session on this event format on the 11th of July at 11 o'clock. So if you don't know yet whether this is interesting for you or not, please come to the virtual info session and you will find out more about the event. If you already know that you are interested and you want to register, registration is open. So just click on the link in the chat where you find all the info and the registration for this event. If you're more looking into developing your skills as a cluster manager, we'd invite you to join the Cluster Booster Academy. This is an event for up to 50 participants, which will run for 3 online training sessions. So on 3 days, you will get a coaching session, and then there will be 2 in-person days at the beginning of March next year in Warsaw. And this is an opportunity for cluster managers to further develop their skills, to find out what the other European clusters are doing in Europe in their daily work, and to learn from each other's experiences. So a great opportunity. If you are interested in this, please register for the Academy. There are also upcoming Clusters Meet Regions events. You will see here on the screen the overview coming up in October and November in Moldova, Spain, Germany, and Belgium. And this is an event format where we bring together clusters and policymakers from different levels, so local, regional, or national level, to discuss the role of clusters in the industrial ecosystems, what kind of good practices we have, and what role clusters play in the regional economies and as drivers of the green and digital transition, and to improve resilience. So come to these events if you're interested in discussing these issues and to learn about how to engage with policymakers. Great opportunities, as I said, in Moldova and Spain in October, and in Germany and Belgium in November. And last but not least, we also have matchmaking opportunities, especially looking into international market. The EU Singapore matchmaking event will take place on the 22nd and 24th of October in the context of the Singapore International Energy Week. So here we have C2C, C2B, and B2B collaboration options, where the European delegation will meet with the Singaporean counterparts in Singapore. The focus areas on clean energy and green tech, e-mobility, sustainability and digital tech, and the energy transition finance. So Singapore is a destination for you. Please register for the Singaporean matchmaking event. And if you're rather looking into another country, meaning India, there's an opportunity for the 18th and 21st of November, where the EU delegation will travel to Bengaluru for matchmaking in the Bengaluru Tech Summit. And this will, again, offer opportunities to find C2C, C2B, or B2B collaborations with a special focus on biotech, digital, green tech, and advanced manufacturing. Also topics that are covered by STEP, so which is why I will close here and give back the floor so that we can dive into the topic of the day.
Thank you, Nina. Yes, let's do that. Let's dive into the topic of the day, and let's hear from Benoit Esman, who is from the European Commission, and he will introduce, get us acquainted with STEP. Benoit, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jivine, and good morning to everyone. It's good to be back among the cluster community. So the purpose of today is indeed to give you a little bit of a presentation about STEP. For some of you, I think you might have followed already the session that my colleague gave. I think it was end of last year, about the proposal on STEP before we started the negotiation with the Parliament and the Council. But as Jivani mentioned in the beginning in her introduction, now the regulation on STEP entered into force on the 1st of March. And so I will just run you through a little bit what we are doing, what are the tools, what are the incentives for STEP, and how useful it could be for you in your work as a cluster manager to help your members. We can go to the next slide, and I won't spend too much time on some of the slides, but don't worry, you will get the full slide deck afterwards that will be available for download. I think you all know the context, the different crises we've been through, be it COVID, be it the energy crisis, Russia war of aggression against Ukraine, inflation, etc. So we know that the difficulty in the EU to strengthen the competitiveness of EU industry is there, that there is a lot to be done. Some of you may have seen already the draft, or let's say the strategic agenda that has been discussed between heads of state and governments for the next period. As you know, there will be also a new commission coming in the office end of this year. And it's clear that EU competitiveness and the support for industry will be a key point, a key policy area to work on. So STEP really falls into that, because STEP is now, let's say, a kind of a pilot exercise that we are leading, implementing right now, and that will also serve as food for thought, let's say, also for the next multi-financial framework that the Commission has to propose by July next year. So the Commission will have to propose a budget for the next period. You might or might not know that the EU budget is usually set for 7 years. It might be different in the future. We might set it for 5 instead of 7 years, but we will need to propose a budget that will also support the political priorities of the Commission, and hopefully STEP will also bear fruits and provide valuable insights about how to have a more flexible budget in the future. We can go to the next slide. I think this is really the key slide, just to present you and just to understand what STEP is about. So definitely it is not a new fund, it's not a new instrument. It's really about being more efficient with the funds that we have right now. So initially, you may remember that in proposal, we asked the Council to get an additional 10 billion euros for the different funds that are covered by STEP. It didn't go through. The Council clearly said that they would provide 1.5 billion top-up for the European Defence Fund, but for the rest, they asked the Commission to do reallocation between the programs. So that's exactly what we are doing now. The regulation is covering 11 different programs that I will show you later on. And the purpose is really to try to use the money from those 11 programs in a more efficient way to support industry in 3 critical sectors, so deep tech and digital, clean tech, and biotech. The other point is also to use better the different levels or the different layers of funding that we have, because you might know that the Commission has, for some of the funds, a direct role through its executive agencies, but there are also funds that are managed in indirect manner through implementing partners such as the EIB, for instance. And still 1/3 of the budget of the EU is also managed under shared management, as we call it technically, but meaning that it's managed by the member states, or in some member states by the regions. And actually, this is the biggest pocket of money that we can tap in for these industrial sectors through the STEP regulation. One of the big thing as well is that we are trying to build a new portal, the STEP portal, that I will quickly show you later on. And I think that could be also a service that could be useful for you as cluster manager to better support your members. We can go to the next slide. And we can skip it because this is a little bit, in theory, the link with the industrial policy. But in the interest of time, I will go rather to the substance. So we can move to the next one. And this is really about what STEP is about. So STEP is actually focusing really on industrial capacities and on the development or the manufacturing of critical technologies. This in order to strengthen the value chains, but why we are mentioning manufacturing, why we highlight manufacturing, it's because we are not supporting with STEP deployment of technologies. This was already possible, and this is still possible with most of the European funding schemes that are already being implemented. But there was only a very, very minor share of the EU funding available that could be devoted to support really manufacturing or industrial capacities. And this is really why STEP came into the light to better support the value chain, especially from the manufacturing point of view, and so to allow the different authorities to reprogram the money to support that specific aspect. Because we are supporting manufacturing, the objective is also to support the workers. So labor and skills also has a prominent place in the STEP regulation. So as I said, we are talking about reprogramming. So the different funds that we are covering, we are working be it with the colleagues in the different DGs at the commission level for the funds under direct management to convince them to reallocate part of the financial allocation to the STEP sectors. And for that, so they need to launch new call for proposals. For a call for proposals to be labeled as a STEP call, the call needs to meet at least one condition, which is either to bring an innovative, cutting-edge element with a significant economic impact on the single market, or to contribute to reduce or prevent strategic dependencies. And so we have been already working with different DGs, and we launched already a few calls which are labeled as STEP under the Digital Europe program, under Horizon Europe, under the European Defence Fund, under EU for Health, and under the Innovation Fund. Of course, the STEP sectors are quite limited, so these are the three sectors that we are covering now. You can see also somehow the link with two big initiatives from DG GROW, the Net Zero Industry Act and the Critical Raw Materials Act, and a few examples of the technologies that could be supported. But again, and just to stress this, this is only a non-exhaustive list of examples. Since the purpose is really to support breakthrough technologies, of course, we need to leave the door a little bit open for new technologies. So this is more for inspiration, those examples, but it could go far beyond this. We can go to the next slide. We have four main tools in STEP. So as I said, it's really about reprogramming. So it's about convincing the services, the managing authorities to use part of the financial allocations that they have to really redirect this money towards the STEP sectors. We will have the STEP seal, which I will briefly touch upon later on, the STEP portal, and a one-stop shop, which is basically us as a task force that has been set in DG budget, so really in the horizontal service of the Commission, so that we can also have contacts with the different DGs or with the different member states. We can go to the next one. So on the portal, the purpose, and probably many of you already know what is existing, and you might be familiar with the funding and tender portal that the Commission is using to display the call for proposals and basically the EU funding that is managed at Commission level. The funding and tender portal is more a kind of an offer-based solution. So you have the full catalog of the different calls that are open. And if you go on the funding and tender portal, you need to navigate through, I think there are more than 400 call for proposals that are there. So you need to kind of know already what you are looking for before accessing, let's say, the legal documents that are setting the condition to get access to EU funding. What we want to do with the STEP portal is to completely change the mindset and to go more from a demand-driven perspective. So we want to support users, to support SMEs, companies, industrial stakeholders to go on the portal and basically in let's say the end version of the STEP portal, to be able to have a tailor-made offer saying, for instance, okay, I'm a company producing components for wind turbines. I'm based in Portugal. I want to expand my production capacity. What kind of funding is available for me? And then you would get an answer from the portal saying these are the 2, 3, 4 most relevant funding opportunities for you. You will still need to dive into the condition of the calls and to see a little bit what are the conditions to apply, but at least it would already kind of channel you towards the right pot of money, if I may say, to go for. And it doesn't require you to know about all the 50 plus European funding scheme that we have right now, let's say, in under implementation. So you don't need to know everything before deciding going for a fund. We also want to avoid that good projects are being wasted because you apply to a call under Horizon Europe because you have been used to do that, and this is the fund that you know, and so people are applying, but even sometimes despite getting really good appraisal and really good project, those ones are still not funded. So if we go to the next slide, this is the QR code to link to the portal, but again, I will just give you a quick tour later on to show you where are the funding opportunities. If we move to the next one. So these are really the programs that we are covering with STEP. 5 programs under direct management, so under the responsibility of the Commission and its executive agencies, and 6 programs under, let's say, what we can call the cohesion policy funds. You see the European Regional Development Fund, Cohesion Fund, European Social Fund Plus, Just Transition Fund, and also the RRF, so the Recovery and Resilience Facility, as well as InvestEU. If a project apply under a call that is labeled STEP under one of the 5 programs under direct management, if your project is good enough, meeting the eligibility criteria and passing the threshold of quality, the project will be awarded a STEP seal. And the STEP seal purpose is exactly to help and to fast track projects that might not get funding by the fund they have applied for to get the funding through another source. Because as I said, what we noticed is that, for instance, with Horizon Europe, the competition to get EU funding is so fierce that super good projects are being left empty-handed somehow. And so there is a good energy, there's a good potential, there's a good project that is being kind of wasted at the moment. And we really want to avoid that and to help those projects to still attract the funding from a different source. So if you apply under the Innovation Fund, but you are not successful in the end, but still your project got a good appraisal, we want to make the path easier to get access to EU funding anyway, without starting from scratch under another fund. So that's a little bit the purpose behind the STEP seal. When I mentioned that one of the main tools that we have under STEP as a regulation is to reprogram the money, it's also about us, but it should also come from you, I think, as the basis, as the people who know the ground, to convince the managing authorities, so the authorities in the member states that are in charge of the cohesion policy money from the funds that are there on the right-hand side, to reprogram, so to take some of the money that has been granted already in the financial allocation for those funds, and to launch dedicated call for proposal on STEP, on the 3 sectors that are covered by STEP. The first country that will do so is actually Denmark, where they've taken already around 50 million from the Just Transition Fund to allocate it specifically to the clean tech sector in Denmark. They will be launching the call very soon, I think at the end of the summer, but this is the first country that is coming with a concrete example. And we have already 7-8 member states that are going through the process of reallocating the money to the STEP sectors. On our side, from the task force, we will still continue convincing the other countries and as many managing authorities as possible to really dedicate some budget for the STEP sectors. But I think that it's really worthwhile as well that the pressure, if I may say, also comes from the industry. And so if you have big issues that needs funding to strengthen your value chain in your area, please engage with us or engage with your managing authority and inform them about the opportunities that STEP is providing. The STEP regulation is providing financial incentive for the managing authorities to reallocate the money, so they can offer higher financing rates that they could initially under the ERDF regulation. They could also have a higher pre-financing rate in those member states. And for some of the member states or some of the regions, they might also have an easier, let's say, path to support large enterprises and to have some state aid exemptions. So this is rather technical, but just to show you that there are financial incentives to use, in the end, what represent almost 1/3 of the European budget to dedicate it to the STEP sectors. If we go to the next slide, you will see a little bit how this is working for the STEP seal that I already mentioned. I won't dive into too much detail here, but I think you got the message and the principle behind the STEP seal. So we can go to the next one, which is showing also how projects that will be awarded the STEP seal could potentially get money from other sources, like the Recovery and Resilience Facility, where the member states will have to take into account as a priority those projects to use the money from the RRF. It also has impact on the Modernization Fund, on InvestEU, and other union funds of program. We can go to the next slide, showing you a little bit the timeline. So the regulation only entered into force on the 1st of March this year. As I said, we now have 7, 8 member states working on a program modification to reallocate the money to STEP priorities. We expect many more to come also towards the end of the year. And I think that the big bunch of money available to the STEP sectors to support manufacturing in Europe will be available mostly by beginning of 2025. So now I think we can move to the next slide, which is the last one, really to encourage you to get in touch with us, provide us feedback, ask us to come and to do presentation if it's needed about STEP. Of course, here we only have 15 minutes, so it's a very short one, but we can dive into more details. And if you have questions, we remain open to discuss them further. What I will do now is just to share my screen and show you on the portal where to look for funding opportunities. The big difference as well, so if you go on the STEP portal, so Strategic Technologies for Europe platform, you have everything about the initiative here, so you can read about the background, about what are the targeted investment areas, what are the targeted project promoters, how the STEP seal works. You also have access to the guidance note, which is defining the scope of STEP, so that might be interesting for you. We will also develop a special section for investors, because we also want to attract private investors to come and finance the project that are being awarded the STEP seal. Under Get Advice, you might have advice about how to set up the projects, how to apply for funding, etc. And here, under Get Funding, if I take only one example, for instance, on digital and deep tech, you now have a dashboard that will appear and that will list all the funding opportunities that are labeled as STEP and that are covering the digital sector. At the moment, this is still a very basic version of the STEP portal, because we only had 2 months to put this in place. So we are only listing at the moment the calls under direct management, but by the end of the year, and hopefully even after the summer, all the calls from the member states, so under shared management, will also be displayed here. So it's a different way, but it's, I think, an easier way for you to have quickly an overview of what is available with the key information, such as the budget, such as the deadline. And if you click on a call specifically on the topic that are covered, we will also improve this to make it clearer, to make it more easily understandable, because now there's still too much text in our opinion. But really the purpose of the portal is really to give you a quick overview of what is available in terms of funding, irrespectively of the type of fund, the name of the fund, or irrespectively at the level that the fund is managed. So it's really, I think, something that could be useful for you as a service to better serve your members and to be able to present them the opportunities, even from funds that you might not be familiar with. So I will stop here, but happy to take any questions or to start discussing with you afterwards.
Thank you, Benoit, and I'm really glad you will stay with us and we can ask your questions later. There is a request for the specific search page that Mike is asking, so maybe that could be provided in the link. But I also wanted to ask you, when you said that you wanted to make this more of a tailor-made portal, not in a sense that you have to go and specifically know very well what you're looking for, but you go and you don't know what can be of use. So this current version is already sort of tailor-made already. It is going into that direction that you wish it to go.
It's the beginning of the journey, let's say. What we have now is the first, and to be blunt and direct, this is a little bit the quick and dirty version that we had to set up very quickly in 2 months. It's the basic version that we call the first version of the portal. But our ambition and our purpose is to have really, as you said, something tailor-made. So we are working already to integrate more call for proposals on this version of the portal, and hopefully beginning of 2025, we should be able also to release a completely rebranded portal with also AI support. And we are working to develop an AI chatbot, which would really help people addressing the questions. And instead of having to go through each and every call for proposal and to understand whether you are eligible or not, as I said, the purpose is really to say, okay, I'm a company based in Slovenia. I want to do this. I'm looking for that amount of funding. What are my options? Where should I apply to? And hopefully with AI, you should get an answer saying, okay, this is the call that you should apply for because it corresponds to your project. So instead of people twisting and tweaking their project to fit into one fund, to also have people that go and apply to the fund that make more sense, taking into account the project idea.
Okay, thank you so much, Benoit. There are some questions for you that I will address later because some of them are already looking into step post 2027 and asking for what your ambitions are. But let us now hear from the clusters and then get to all of these questions later, because we have prominent cluster representatives with us who are eager to share their views, how useful could STEP be for you, and what your cluster is all about. We will hear from 3 cluster representatives, CEO at Cleantech Estonia and Cleantech for Baltics, Kadi Ristkok, also head of EU projects at BioRegio Stern Management, Margot Jele, and also with us is a senior business developer at Austrian Center of Industrial Biotechnology, Anton Bauer. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being with us. And let's start off by saying how useful could STEP, do you think, be for you, and what your cluster is doing in more general terms. Candy, let's start with you.
Yes, good morning to everyone. So STEP, I think for the clean tech companies in Estonia and the Baltic countries that we are working for, it's definitely a very useful initiative, because I think we still have a lot of lackings in first the access to knowledge about the funds available. And also the complicated processes to get access to these funds are still holding back quite a lot of companies who esteem that it's too much of a risk and too much of time investment to be applying for those. So if we can cut back on those, I think we can really give a more equitable access to those funds. So it's definitely going in the right direction, but what I see right now is perhaps that we still have to do some marketing for STEP. I haven't heard much about it from the companies themselves. So yeah, let's make sure that they're aware of this opportunity.
Could you just say a couple of words about your cluster?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So Cleantech Estonia is an industry association for clean technology companies in Estonia. we are covering both the companies developing clean technologies, but also the companies that's main business activity is using those, and also the few funds, private funds that are specialized in clean tech investments at the moment. We are covering a sector that in Estonia is about 150 organizations. And what we see is that the sector is growing very fast, and that one of the major challenges is definitely financing. I would say that the very early stage financing is getting better and better, but the growth funding is still a major challenge, and their step can help as well. What we have additionally to Cleantech Estonia, only covering Estonian clean technology organizations, is Cleantech for Baltics. Given that those are small markets, we see a lot of synergies to be operating as a Baltic collaborative cluster. So we are working together under Cleantech for Baltics to make sure that there's a common strong voice for the sector, both towards the policymakers on national and EU level, but also towards foreign investors and export partners. And we have a EU level collaboration going on with different Clean Tech 4 initiatives in different EU regions. And we have an umbrella organization, Clean Tech for Europe, that is helping us with the policy topics on EU level.
Okay, thank you so very much. Let's move to Margot now, and I would like to first of all ask you whether you agree with what Kadi has said about some lackings in terms of accessing knowledge, complicated processes, and also that more marketing should be done for STEP. Does that sound something like you would agree with, or would you say something completely different?
Yes, definitely. I totally agree in some points, at least. So I would also say from my point of view, I think the companies haven't heard much about STEP so far, but it's obvious it's quite new. And I have also to say I have a little bit doubts that companies may have the resources, meaning in terms of time, to apply for such projects. That is the reason why we from BioRegi Stern trying as a cluster organization to support the companies in the way that we as a cluster organization mostly invest times to be part of such projects where we have the opportunity to provide support measurements directly to SMEs without having them undergoing the whole application process within such bigger calls, I would say. The European calls for proposals are often very time consuming, but what I really appreciate is definitely that the access to the funding and the process to apply for that is making more easier, even for us as a cluster organization. So that is really very appreciated from my side. I have to say that is definitely what we are looking for. I can add, we from Stern are also part or member of the Council of European Bioregions, and CIBA, called CIBA, and CIBA has also established a special interest group to provide access to EU funding or to exchange experiences on EU funding, and especially having a view on STEP and what STEP can provide. I think that is really a great advantage if it's really making more easier to access the European funding proposal, and also not to go to every portal and every funding program and doing a time-consuming desk research. So I really appreciate this tailor-made approach, I would say, from our point of view.
Yeah.
That's really of great advantage.
Thank you so much for now. We have some speakers that are raising their hands and want to ask questions. We'll get to you very, very soon. I just want to hear from another panel debate speaker of ours. Anton, who has already gotten some experience with the Seal of Excellence. And maybe you could say a couple of sentences on that and then share your views on the STEP initiative in that way, Anton.
Yeah, so thank you for this very interesting discussion, and also for the presentation and the program itself, because I think it's a very important one, the STEP. And so for me, I learned quite a lot in your presentation, Benoit, and this is really very helpful. And I think it's go absolutely in the right direction, as Caddy already confirmed. So maybe short background to our organization. So we are the Austrian Center of Industrial Biotechnology, and we are a hub connecting academia with industry. So we are really in touch with both sides of the world. On the one hand, great ideas, and on the other hand, really ready to go to the market and developments to bring forward the society. So I personally, I was co-founder of 2 biotech companies already in the past, and there I made experience with EU projects as a startup and scale up, and also made experience with the Seal of Excellence at that time. But obviously you already recognized and are kind of improved, but at that time it was not the case, was that we got really excellent rating in a project we applied for the SME tool. I think it was 250 applicants, and only a few got funded. We were among the top 10 best, but didn't get funding. And it was really a lot of investment from our side, and a big disappointment that we were rated very high, but didn't get funding. So we took the Seal of Excellence, went to the national bodies. However, they said, well, sorry, we can't recognize this, which was the second disappointment for us at that time. So I completely agree that if you already are really have the seal, have the proof that you are really doing well, that your technology is important, needed, could bring products to the market, that there should not be the, let's say, restart from the very scratch, but let's say, okay, you entered already at a certain level, and now you can speed up, because as Margot already mentioned, applications take a very long time. Biotech companies, or also probably clean tech and other companies, don't have the time. They have their next board meeting, they have their milestones, so they need to speed up. And if you have already something proven, the shorter we can make the time span to really get kind of support, the more, let's say, or the better it is. And this can really decide between existence and non-existence of a company, particularly in a startup and biotech situation. So I think this is very good.
Anton, would you just clarify, because you said that the Seal of Excellence was not recognized initially, and then it was recognized. Could you clarify what happened so that we know the person?
Yeah. It was, so we got it, but we went to the local funding agency. They said, sorry.
National level, right?
On the national level, right. On the national level. Sorry, we cannot recognize this, and you just have to start all the process again and rewrite the proposal, because obviously they need different information in different forms. So this is not, this was not really going hand in hand. And also on the EU level, it didn't really help us too much. So at that time, it was just kind of, for us, lost time. And what I see with the STEP initiative, and also with your efforts to convince national bodies to really recognize this, I think these are 2 great improvements you are working on.
Okay, thank you so much. And I can see that people are reacting, but I'm feeling that we have to, first of all, initially quickly react to this lost time scenario that Anton has referred to, because Benoit, I can see, is nodding as well and wants to say something.
No,
yes,
absolutely.
please, Benoit.
Just to react to unfortunately, well, a 2 common story that Anton shared with us, and that is also applied to many other experiences, with people being rightly so frustrated because of the time investment, because the recognition of a good quality project, but in the end saying, well, sorry, there is no money left, so come again later and try again. So this is really what we want to avoid. And this story of the non-recognition of the seal of excellence by a national authority is something that we also want to tackle now with the STEP seal. The STEP seal is indeed inspired from the seal of excellence. The Seal of Excellence has also gone through different stages. They reviewed a little bit the process, etc. So colleagues already work on that before. But in order to make things easier, one of the provision also of the regulation, the legal framework that is covering STEP, also imposed the member states to appoint a national contact point. And so we are building this network of national contact points with every single member state to make this process, especially on the seal, seamless and easier. So really to avoid these kind of things. So we work hand in hand with the member states to try to see what are the obstacles, if there are any obstacles, how we could remove them, and how to make this transition, this switch from, let's say, one pot of money that you apply for. Unfortunately, because there was too many good projects, let's say you didn't get the funding, so that at least you might get funding from another source, because in the end, companies do not really care where the money is coming from, whether it's the blue, yellow, or red pot, as long as the project is being funded, and especially when it's a good project.
Yes, and just very briefly, the national contact point, is that something that every country already has, or like half of the countries do? Could you just give us
I think there are still 4 or 5 member states that have not appointed yet someone to be the contact point really on STEP. This is a kind of an internal network that we are working with from the Commission side, and let's say directly the people that we, let's say, that are responsible to help us put some kind of oil in the engine, you know, to ensure that the whole functioning is working well and not that there are some breakdowns somewhere. So they should have a very good knowledge of how the EU funding works technically also in the member states to help making this transition between one fund to another as seamless as possible. Once the full list of national contact points will be established, so very soon, it will also be published on the STEP portal. So you might also get in touch with them if there is a need to do so. So this will be publicly released, and maybe still to add another word on that. So this is a kind of one level we are working with the member states, and also, let's say, within the Commission. So within the different DGs that are, let's say, covered by STEP, because their program is under the STEP regulation, we also have an internal network at director level, so gathering the directors from DG Klima, from DG RTD, etc., to also work on solution to make this possibility of allowing to fund from another program without starting from scratch again. So 2 parallel things, but working together to make the experience better.
Thank you so much. Margot wanted to comment, and she raised her hand several times. Sorry for waiting for a little bit. The floor is yours now.
Not a problem. So most of my questions have been already answered. So that was definitely what I wanted to know, if there are at any places already national contact points, because I yesterday had a small research on STEP portal and STEP page, and I think there's no German one. At least I could not find it. So that is the reason why I was asking, because I think what I also noticed in the chat that there, I think Mike was mentioning that the bottleneck seems to be the national contact points. So if this could be improved, I think that could be really very helpful for companies as well as for cluster organizations to really, with this special seal, to apply once again and not having the need to apply or undergoing the whole process once again. So that is really very helpful.
Thank you so much, Benoit. I don't know if you want to mention this Germany's case specifically, if there is a contact point there.
to be fully transparent with you, the issue that we are facing now is more about the management of private data, so personal data. So that is why there are still a few steps that we need to go through before being able to publish the list. But I think, honestly, I'm not dealing with that, so I don't want to give false information, but there are only a few member states that haven't appointed their national contact point yet. They had until June, so we are sending reminders and working with the ones that are a little bit late. But this will be coming very soon, and I can also let the ECCP team know when the list is being published, so that they can inform the cluster community in the next newsletter or something like that.
Thank you so much, and we'll go back to you, Benoit, at some point as well, because there are, as I said, many questions. I just want to make another round to talk to cluster community. I said in the beginning that we will sort of explain what the critical technologies are, and we did say that, but we want to still get something more specific. Maybe the clusters could also say that what are the interesting developments that will require funding in the future, and what are the interesting developments that do require funding now? I mean, what are the specific examples about which we are speaking when we speak about the potential of STEP? Candy, maybe you could give us one.
Yeah, well, the focus of STEP is, of course, on decarbonization of the industry. So it's very much energy focused, and this is also the kind of subsector of clean technology that is the most developed. The development of the subsector started way earlier than for some other subsectors of clean tech, which means that they are raising, they're more developed, they're raising bigger funds. They are still they are still struggling to apply for the funding, but I would say a big part of this kind of energy subsector has a better and stronger understanding of the EU funds available and access to them. Of course, this is the place where we can have the most impact on decarbonization and the fastest impact. To scale the technologies that are already on the market. But I think thinking about future, what we should also focus on is adaptation technologies. There hasn't been a lot of focus on that, and I think it's very much needed so that we can move forward also with mitigation efforts, because we're starting to hit this political block of like companies and people really struggling to adapt to the changes in climate, and at the same time we are demanding more and more efforts from them to mitigate as well. So the private incentives need to be better aligned, I think. But yeah, also about circular economy. I think it's also an underfinanced category of clean technologies. So I'm always trying to keep an eye on not being so maybe carbon tunnel visioned, although I know that we have very ambitious climate goals, and they are certainly very hard to achieve, and we were going to need way more than what STEP is currently doing. Maybe something I would like to shed some light on as well is the idea that STEP is kind of a first step in a way to a European clean tech investment plan that we definitely need, because the amount of investments that are lacking, even looking at the Net Zero Industry Act technologies, those 6 technologies, we are lacking, I think, 50 billion to 2030. And here we're talking only about 6 technologies, right? So we need a way more coherent plan how we're going to invest into that. What we see right now is that the relaxation of state aid rules for member states has functioned only for not only, but mainly, let's say, for the bigger member states. So for smaller member states, it's definitely an issue. And the risk is that we're going to concentrate all the clean technologies in the few big member states that way, which is probably not what we want from security and clean transition perspective.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So adaptation technologies, STEP only being the first step to European clean tech investment, and a more coherent plan is needed. What else in terms of specific critical technologies? What are the ones that are needing investment? And that's a question to Margot and then Don first, and then we'll go to you, Benoit.
Yes,
Margot?
from our point of view, as we are a cluster organization with a focus on life sciences and having lots of companies in the field of biotech, we appreciate that STEP is focusing also or has an objective on biotechnology. And we see here, due to our experiences within a current involvement in a current running Eurocluster project focusing on biomanufacturing, that there's really a very huge need in the biomanufacturing field. We noticed based on this project and Eurocluster project that companies are really struggling to become independent from European value chains and trying to establish own value chains in Europe. And therefore, we think really that there is a huge need to support in the biomanufacturing field, but not only in the biomanufacturing field as well, as we also see a huge need for new approach methodologies, such as in vitro or in silico methods. For example, organ-on-chips or organoids, they enable improved chemical safety assessment and really can later on contribute to the replacement of animals. So I think there's also, on the other hand, a huge need in this sector and these technologies, because they are really not in the awareness of the people, that they are maybe the same or provide the same efficiency as animal testings. And therefore, I think there's also a huge need in those new approach methodologies from our point of view.
And how about biotechnology in the food sector?
So we are not covering directly the food sector, but I can really share some experiences from other colleagues. I can also say that there is also a huge need focusing on new technologies to support the food technology and this food development, as there are, you know, there's a huge need in the world to provide food for everyone. So I think that is a huge sector, but we are not the experience and the experts in that field, so I cannot say too much from that point of view.
Thank you so much. Anton?
Yeah, I think this is a perfect introduction, because I can say something about food in a biotechnology, because our center actually is really applying biotechnology starting from circular economy, so regenerative monomers for polymers like plastic, starting from renewable resources, on fixation of carbon dioxide to generate food via microorganisms, so archaebacteria or other microorganisms, up to the life science and pharma sector. So we are really in a broad field. Actually,
I feel like we lost Anton. I don't know if it's just me, but I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, sorry. No, I just shared a link where you can see all the range our hub is working in. So really from all the circular economy up to food and pharma. And yeah, so I think this sector has several technologies, like Margot already mentioned, which might not be in the focus and might not be immediately recognized as being really game changing, like organoid on a chip and so on. But what you can do, I think, is with it is really exciting for drug testing, for health technologies and for diagnosis. Still, I want to come to another point, which I think sometimes is not in the focus, particularly in such talks, but Benoit mentioned it already, and that's the question of the private capital. So it's not only about the public money that is required, and it's incredibly important to have the public money, but it's also about the private money. And also the sector needs more, so the biotech and I guess the clean tech as well needs more private money. And and there would be sufficient private money in the European Union. It's just not available for startup or scale-up companies. In the pension funds, insurance funds, and so on. So as the German Minister Habeck already put in an initiative, I don't know where this stands now, to really kind of mobilize a certain fraction of all this money and really make it available for investment in young companies, young innovative companies. I think if this would be somehow really successful and supported whatever it takes by any let's say regulative, be it on the national or on the European level, I think that would be great, and it would help all the startups and the scale-ups so much in the European Union, and it would bring us closer to compete with others like US or Asia.
Okay, thank you for this point. And as you said, Benoit has already mentioned it, and I remember Benoit explained that in the portal there would be a special section for investors as well. So maybe you would want to react immediately to what Anton has said and to what Candy has said, because you were also raising your hand. So the floor is briefly yours now, Benoit.
No, absolutely. I will try to be short indeed, but no, on those 3 points, it's true that the investment gap is huge and it cannot be only filled by public money. We need to be realistic about that if we want to really make the green and digital transition happen, to strengthen the resilience of the EU industrial ecosystems. We also need the private sector to be in. So this is also one of the parts that we are working on, to get private investors in. And just to give you a very practical feedback, we had a meeting yesterday to discuss about a network of investors and to see how the projects with the step seal could, let's say, be taken as a pipeline of projects to be submitted to this network of 3,000 private investors. So there are things that will be happening, and I think that we can also have a little bit the sense that making a true capital market union will be one of the priorities of the next commission. I don't think it's really that you need to be in the secret of who is going to be next commissioner for the capital market union, but that would be definitely a very hot topic for the next commission. On biotech, I think that the point that I take is that indeed this is really a kind of let's say new sector, and as well, I think I could say the same also for deep tech, digital, and also for clean tech, at least with what we are covering with STEP. Since we want to cover specifically innovative, cutting-edge technologies, I think there is also some work to be done to better connect the industry, the people who are working in research and development about those processes, etc., and the public authorities at commission level, at national level, etc., because I think that people need to understand what's going on in the field, what's going on the ground, what are the next hot topics, etc., so that also the support to strengthen those value chains, or let's say the support to invest and scale up those companies to remain in Europe, to provide work for people in Europe, etc., so that they are covered in the future funding schemes. So I would really encourage you indeed to liaise with us or with let's say the lead DGs, or we can help you to put you through the right person. But there needs to be this kind of dialogue between the industry and the public administration. And finally,
and
maybe
I think there was a
so just also to mention that again, we are very much in, let's say, the taking off phase with STEP. It's still very much a pilot, but we really encourage you to get in touch with us and to promote so what STEP is about, or what STEP is trying to cover, to invite us to your networks, to your group of members, to present what we are doing, and to have this kind of dialogue. So do not feel shy, get in touch, and I think indeed it is also with dialogue that we are able, at least for what we are responsible in the Commission, to better set the funding support in the future.
Yes, and that was specifically what I wanted to refer to, because I think it was Candy who said in the beginning that the STEP initiative itself needs more promotion and more marketing. And you already answered that in the chat, agreeing with it, that this is only initial steps and we need to do more. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I can only repeat that this is really the pilot phase. Colleagues are working, and the different services in the Commission are already starting preparing the ground for the next Commission, even though we don't know who will hold which portfolio and what will be the main priorities. But yeah, as I said, we already have a few clues, and the EU competitiveness will definitely be one of them. So it's about also preparing the right budget and to dedicate the right share of the budget to what needs to be supported. So in that sense, it's absolutely essential that we have this kind of dialogue and exchange, and that we got also then your ideas about what should be supported, or let's say what should be improved in the future, because now is the window, I would say, for changing things. I heard already, and I think that we know that the process to apply for EU funding is too complex, that the offer at the moment was too fragmented, scattered on different websites, etc. So it doesn't make it easy. SMEs are scared of applying because they are uncertain about the outcome, that, well, they don't know what kind of competition they will face, etc. So there are different, let's say, streams we could be working on, and why not to think about different types of funding for more advanced, for let's say early starters, for new users, because this is something also that we really want to expand. I mean, at some point we need to go a little bit outside the usual suspects that are applying for EU funding because they know how to do it, or because they hire consultancy companies because they have the means to do it, while others remain, let's say, outside of it because they don't really feel they have access or that they are entitled to. So this is also another group of companies, of users that we want to target. But perhaps we need to set better tools, or easier, let's say, entry grade tools to get the first access to EU funding.
I'll get to Anton and Margot very soon, but I want to address some questions in the chat. There are some questions from Ukraine. For example, one from Sergei. Is it possible to apply to STEP for granting of the company as part of informal cluster? If the company operates in the international logistics, including the EU, we are interested in sectors digital and deep innovation tech and clean and resource efficient tech. Company origin, Ukraine. Thanks in advance. What can we say, Benoit?
That's a good question. I think, again, just to be clear, you do not really apply for STEP funding in itself. You apply through the existing programs which are operating under the umbrella of STEP. So you still apply under the Innovation Fund, or EU for Health, or European Defence Fund. Honestly, I'm not familiar with really the content of the Digital Euro program, but if it's about digital, I would say this might be the one to look for. So have a look at the portal under digital and see whether there is something, or whether there will be something coming. Maybe something that I forgot to show you also on the portal, and which was something that that we were asked to do by actually some SMEs, is also to give a kind of an advance notice of what will be the next calls. So I showed you what are the calls which are about to open, and those which are open to apply for. But if you go on the Get Funding tab as well, you have a table there where you can see when the next Innovation Fund call should be launched. It's tentatively planned, but at least it gives you an advance notice. Why? Because sometimes we also heard that companies are rushing to apply because they know that a call is about to be launched, so they rush their project, etc. While actually, sometimes those calls are kind of recurring, so they're happening like twice a year or at least every year. And so instead of rushing, if they knew in advance that there would be another call on the same topic the year after, they would have had more time to mature their project and present a better application. So it is also a small but really concrete example that we heard, and something that should make it easier for people to understand the mechanic of applying under EU funding.
But I think this question specifically relates to the origin of the company being from Ukraine, which is not part of the EU.
No,
yet.
true. So what is indeed also something essential in STEP is about strengthening the value chain in Europe. So the project of manufacturing capacities has to be located within the EU. So if it's a Ukrainian company based in Ukraine, it's not going to fly, at least not under STEP. So you might consider then other options and other programs, but which are not in the remit of STEP.
Okay, Anton and Margot, let's hear from you now, and we will start wrapping up soon. But there are so many questions coming in still, which means that this question is this topic is of high relevance to you. Anton, let's move to you.
So I just want to bring up another, let's say, point where STEP could be very helpful. What we see, for example, in our hub at ARTSIP is we have very interesting projects in the academic research institutions background, and they are really market oriented. So they have a high value, but they are not in a stage where the company is already formed. We wanted to start an initiative where we identify these projects, as we know a lot of them, and really bring them forward to allow them really start a company. However, we realized that the funding for such kind of very market-oriented project is very difficult because it doesn't apply to science funding. It's to go for networks, it doesn't really fit and it takes too long. So it would be really a particular project funding for quick access to really get to the startup stage, so kind of pre-seed funding. Would you see any, and this is a question to all of you, particularly, of course, to Benoit, would you see any, let's say, possibility to recognize particular this phase before the start of a company, where there could be set up an instrument which would support institutions who are overlooking such kind of developments and really help them bringing, increasing the number of startups and bringing products to the market?
So the possibility to recognize such an instrument. Benoit will refer to this at the very end. Margot, let's hear from you now.
Yes, I just wanted to briefly add, as Benoit mentioned, that biotechnology is brand new technology and new objective. I would like to suggest, as we from SIBA, we have more than 60 members, which are cluster organizations in the field of life sciences. And we discussed that marketing is still a little bit lacking. So I would like to invite you, Benoit, or one of your colleagues, being part of one of our SIG webinars, where you may be able to exchange and provide more informations and also exchange experiences and the needs from European cluster organizations in the field of biotechnology. I think that might be very useful for you to create this STEP approach a little bit further and make it more tailored for this specific field of biotechnology.
Candy, would you also have a final suggestion for Benoit?
Yeah, we're kind of piling on Benoit, but I think it needs to be a team effort, definitely. And I agree with the fact that kind of building up the capacity of NCPs, the national contact points, is of key importance, because indeed most companies cannot afford expensive consultancies. What I can say is that there are not even many consultancies who are good at EU fund writing. So it's a real bottleneck. and it shouldn't be. So perhaps we can build towards a way for access to simple consulting, at least at basic level, to be indeed free and to be done by experts who understand the priority technologies as well. Because oftentimes they are really building up their knowledge from zero, which means that the company with the contact point will be more explaining what it is that they want to do, rather than going into how the application should be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these comments, and thank you so much for your finalizing suggestions, and I will refer them back to Benoit, adding the question from Sergei, which is rather general, but brings us back to the very idea of STEP, and this will be a good way to end this. Could you please clarify about mentioned at the booklet of STEP mobilizing funding across 11 existing programs financed by the EU? What does mobilization mean in this case? This is what Sergei is asking. And then if you could react to what the panelists said, Benoit, that would be lovely.
Yeah, so on the mobilization is really about the people and the authorities which are in charge of, let's say, managing EU funding to reallocate the money to the STEP sectors within those 11 programs that are covered by STEP. So I think that's the way, and I invite Sergei to also have a look maybe on the portal, on the About section, to find more about the guidance note as well, to have a full view of the scope and what STEP could be funding or not. And then, no, I think a lot of food for thought, and I would say some future-looking solution as well. I think there are several good points that you raised, and that we definitely need to take into account for the future. We won't be able to change everything right now, so let's be honest. We aren't going to make changes to the existing programs right now by changing the rules and how they are set, etc. We heard already several times this issue about also how the assessment or how the evaluation of the applications are being done. But that's something definitely to consider for the future, for the next budget, because we need indeed to change. We cannot carry on doing the same things. There is a willingness to improve on what we can deliver, on the need to be faster, on the need to be more, let's say, in contact with the development in the industry. So I cannot say really how this will look like, but definitely these are worth points to share, and that I will transfer to my colleagues who are involved in the groups reflecting about the next EU budget. So again, once more than happy to take forward meetings as well with you, to come to CyberSig to explain with colleagues and to be fed about what is going on in your field, or to have meetings like I think Sophie from Mecatech, who also wanted to have more info about STEP. More than happy. This was really also only in 15 minutes to give you a quick overview of what STEP is about, and what is the potential of reallocating some EU funding to those three critical sectors. But hopefully we can also take some lessons from what will be implemented from now until next July, so that it can feed into the next budget proposal for the future MFF.
Thank you. And there are many comments coming in. For example, that STEP, Mike is saying, ultimately means that a highly effective team is formed. Investors look at strong team as much as the tech alone. STEP is a powerful instrument. Open your minds and see the possibilities. That is one of many ways in this program benefits participants. That's one. Suzanne said that cultivated meat is a really hot topic in the US and Singapore. They are way ahead in the R&D and production. And in Denmark, the next call for national clusters, we will have biotechnology as a focus area, biosolutions, and some other comments and questions, which we will sadly not cover all of them, but we are really, really grateful for your very active and very interactive participation. And at this point, I want to thank all of the participants. And I want to give the floor back to Nina, who will say something about the funding opportunities, yet more funding opportunities that exist.
Thank you, Jamila, and thanks everybody. It was very interesting listening to you. Just to wrap up the session, I also want to share some funding opportunities that might be interesting for the cluster community to have a look at. Not all of them related to STEP. Some are cover a broader topic, but some of them are as well. For example, this first one to present a call for proposals to support innovative manufacturing technologies and processes for medicines production. So here, the action should cover developing support for innovations targeting the manufacturing of APIs, namely by either developing novel manufacturing processes and technologies or novel industrial manufacturing and facility designs. This is under the HERA Action Grant, and the deadline is the 5th of September. You find the info on the Funding and Tenders portal with the link in the chat. A rather broader topic, but I think very interesting, is a call for the experimentation exchange of good practices for value creation. So here projects are expected to contribute to the value creation and transfer from the economy and society by increased interlinkages and cooperation between knowledge valorization actors, which could be academia and research, could be industry and SMEs, or the public administration, policymakers, and civil society. And here we're talking about new solutions to societal and economic challenges by stronger uptake in deployment of research results and the improvement of structures, strategies, practices, and skills for the knowledge valorization through reforms and new initiatives. This is under Horizon, a video call with the deadline of the 25th of September. Have a look at the call documents. Another interesting call, we talked a little bit about climate, is the call bringing available and actionable solutions for climate adaptation to the knowledge of the regions and local authorities. So here projects should offer information and available solutions on the adaptation to climate change to the authorities, to work on the knowledge and understanding of the policy implications of those solutions, and to harvest, analyze, and systemize the solutions to bring them to the use of the EU mission on adaptation to climate change. Also, a Horizon call with the deadline of the 18th of September. I click on the link that the colleague is putting in the chat to find it. If we're looking more to circular economy, this related to construction, there's a Build for People partnership call open, the full title, Design for Adaptability, Reuse and Deconstruction of Buildings. So here projects should validate construction and renovation solutions based on innovative tools, products, techniques, processes, and methods, deliver guidance and recommendations for technology providers, and also work on actions to standardization and regulatory evolutions to foster the reuse and deconstruction of building materials and products. The deadline for this call is the 17th of September. No, it's open on the 17th of September. It will have the deadline on the 21st of January next year. We still have a little bit more time to prepare for this call, and it's also published on the Funding and Tenders portal. And last but not least, Margaret mentioned the Euroclusters, the one that they're working on. There are several Euroclusters that have open calls, so very concrete opportunities for small and medium-sized enterprises, for either innovative solutions, for training, for networking, or for internationalization in their respective areas or sectors in which they're working. So if you're looking for concrete opportunities for your member SMEs, have a look at all the calls that are published from the Euroclusters on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. You'll find financing in different scales for up to 60,000 euros for the SMEs in your respective. Thanks, and back to you, Julia, for the closing.
Thank you very much for this. I just thought I would read out another comment from Sophie. She said that very interesting. This opportunity could be a very good incentive, and that's coming back to STEP, to companies that are sometimes afraid about the competition and so the limited access to some EU calls and funding, curious to have a look at the platform and try it for our members. So I encourage everyone to do the same, to have a look at the STEP platform. Mike said that the ECCP online always lead to beneficial activities. Thank you for that comment, Mike. And on this note, I invite everyone to register for the next talks that will happen in a week. A transition pathway for chemicals will be the topic. And then after a summer break, we will return on the 4th of September. So you will have roughly 2 months without cluster talks, but there is one next week. So do not forget to register and participate as actively as you did today. It was brilliant. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Continue the discussion on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, general discussion group on LinkedIn. You can join it if you haven't done so, and raise the questions that are of relevance to you. And all of the links are, by the way, on the chat. Visit the ECCP website, follow us on social media, clustercollaboration.eu, European Cluster Collaboration Platform, the hashtags EU Cluster Docs and hashtag ECCP. Use it whenever you post something either about this event or about things that matter to you regarding clusters, and anything that may be of interest to cluster community and broader. Last but not least, I think I would have to wish everyone who's not joining us next week a good summer, but I hope that you do join us next week. And I thank you very much for your participation. And as I said, brilliant, active, and audience with many questions, very friendly. So thank you so much. Do have a good rest of the day and see you some other time. Thank you.